All right, welcome, Curve Deniers. 7/29/2024. We're in the midst of the dog days, and these are always interesting times for the world stage. And right now we're looking at Paris, the Olympics, the predictive programming, and we've been digging deep into some of the early images they showed us, and it's very consistent with everything that we've seen previously, and it seems to be pointing at what's to come as usual. So if you're here, you're going to be getting world stage spoiler alerts. You're free to tune out and wait till it's all over and then see how it ends when everyone else does, or you can figure out in advance, know in advance, inoculate yourself against the roller coaster, which is what most people experience, the ups and the downs, terror attacks, periods of peace, uncertainty. You have demagogues on the left and right, and Trutherville influencers are nothing but. All they do is they play upon fears, paranoia, fear-mongering, and I'm one of the biggest critics of fear-mongers, and they hate it because I'm messing with their grift. They're selling fear, I'm selling mind war inoculation. So we have a conflict of interest here. I'm like a Bill Gates to them. I'm going to somehow kill off Trutherville, which is what is happening. They don't like these orthodoxies challenged, and let me just show you a couple examples. So I put out a couple of polls, and here's the most recent one. If you follow me on Twitter, it's IPS Insider. So this is a poll I put this morning. Are chemtrail fearmongers worse than climate change activists? Or do they have a point? So either you think that chemtrail people are worse, or climate nutters are worse. Or you reject both of these and you think chemtrails are real, bro, or climate change is real. So what is your answer? Looks like we had 89 views and 9 votes so far. 11% say chemtrail people are worse. 66% say climate nutters are worse. And 22% said chemtrails are real, bro, and 0 believe in climate change. Now, my point in posting this is that both sides are wrong. It's a bifurcated war. Both sides have taken the bait. It's a strange game. The only winning move is not to play. So I have Tia Gloria who says, truth hurts. Reversos rule the world. Enjoy the heavy metals in the sky. LOL. And I said, wear a mask. You don't want chemtrail lung. Anyway, we had this back and forth. And I threw at her that Joe Biden's not a woman because she's one of those. And she says, his gait is enough. Do you have a degree? No, I don't have a degree in transvestigationology. And I said, keep lying to yourself. I find your delusions amusing. And she says, okay. And I do. Their delusions give us plenty to talk about. These are interesting times, and a lot of people have interesting takes. Okay, continuing here, I wanted to build on what we've been saying about the significance of Hulk Hogan at the RNC talking about bleeding on his face, and how it was comparable to what Trump did. We were discussing this parallel, and someone in the comments had noted that Hogan's signature move is gesturing to his right ear. So Synchromorpheus posted this on his Twitter. In his speech at the RNC, Hulk Hogan spoke about last seeing Trump at a wrestling match while blood was streaming down his face. That was WrestleMania 5 in 1989. And when he referenced this, he said, oh, I just had a flashback. I just remembered. Oh, no way, this is prepared. And he said, this reminds me of me winning WrestleMania. And he says that Trump did the same thing, bleeding on the world stage, and now he's going to go make Trumpamania. That was the gist of his speech. But here you see the bloody Hulk with his hand by his ear as Trump looks on. And again, John Levon and I spoke about this entire scene. And about how Hulk Hogan said, enough is enough, when someone tries to shoot the president, which is directly from the Illuminati playing card. But even after that, the story continues, because Kamala Harris says, that I thought Trump was willing to debate any time, anywhere, any place, which is another statement right off the same card. Anytime, any place, or snipers can take you out. So the story's building, and then we find an additional connection. And it's not only the hand on the ear, but also, and I'll show you what I mean here, because Synchromorpheus followed this up with another image to show that there's a finger in the audience right there at someone pointing at Trump's right ear. He writes here, although not a genuine photo, this image depicts the moment Hulk Hogan described the RNC. The ear seems like foreshadowing, created long before the assassination attempt in which he was shot in the ear, drawing blood. And there's a lot of back and forth. The left wing is now becoming hoaxers, saying that it didn't happen, it was fake, but they still concede that the other guy died, I think. I mean, it's very questionable. If you're going to say Trump wasn't really shot, then you're saying these other people didn't die, and then you're opening yourself up to litigation. So what they're saying is, well, no, he was hit by shrapnel. Or I think it was a teleprompter exploded and the glass cut him. They're trying to diminish it. In fact, they're burying it in search results. If you search for assassinated president, supposedly, these results are being buried. I also put out another poll. Will there be another 713 type of incident on August 4th as per Internet Proliferated Prophecy? And let's keep an eye on who else promotes this. There's going to be a lot of Gematria types acting like they came up with this date. But this belongs to JL. This is his prediction, not mine. Although it does comport with the general pattern of things. But I asked again, will there be another 713 type incident on August 4th as per prophecy? So let's see here. We have 8 votes so far. 75% said I don't know. 25% said yes. What do you all think? Francis Edwin said there's no option. No's not an option because you don't know. None of us know. Actually, some of us do know. You're reading a script. You know with reasonable certainty what follows. Like we know about space junk. We knew about the blood on the right side of his head and how this would be followed by Harris as president or whatever they're going to do. Alright, let's catch up on comments. Joined here by Thirst for Truth. Emerald Bear says, I love these old songs. Oh yeah, shout out to Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. Where's the curve? Elephant Tusk says, 33 minutes could save you 33% on car insurance. Osher06, Diana South, Clockwork 113, Armin Ree. I heard Armin Ree on the Fakeologist show. He called in, Fakeologist, speaking with Jim Fetzer, which I think was one of Jim Fetzer's finest appearances. I've heard a lot of his conversations. And what I like about this one is he was Well, I think largely because I posted a comment. Fakeologist read one of my comments to Jim Fetzer about how can you deconstruct the moon landing and still think the ISS is real? And his answer is it didn't pose so much of a challenge because there's no Van Allen radiation belt. He never questioned the globe thing, and he didn't see why it would have to have been faked. It didn't seem as implausible. He never questioned it, but he did say specifically he was open to it. And he kind of seemed to agree that outer space as presented might really just be something for people to believe in. So it seems like America has a higher purpose. It's serving humanity. His take on NASA is very cynical, but it's very accurate. But some people have to be pushed to the edge. You artificially accept the parameters of the world they give you, just like Christoph said in The Truman Show. And if you don't challenge those, you don't realize, well, where is real ending and being augmented with fake? And we've been testing these boundaries, and this is not about the shape of the world. It's the least of our concerns. And you can't pigeonhole or label us or say, oh, that's just a flat earther. It's like, no, I'm not even an earther, to be quite honest with you. And it's a false argument, anyhow. To me, it's really about what kind of a system are we in, open or closed. And our worldview is obviously a closed system. And the big question to me is, who shapes our worldview? And it's really an individual question as well. Will you be programmed or deprogrammed? And there are no deprogrammers. You have to do that at the level of the self. You have to decide, I'm going to be the arbiter of what I believe. I'm not going to live with my face pressed up against a screen and just accept it as an argument from authority as most people do. Dave J called in, and he was surprisingly well behaved. I didn't call in because I had my message put there, but overall, I highly recommend it. I'll go ahead and make a point to share a link to the conversation he had with Jim Fetzer. And his take on Sandy Hook is solid. The only thing that I find questionable, not that I'm ascribing any kind of nefarious intent here, is his clinging to the 9/11 story. And his explanation for JFK, I believe, is convoluted, as is his explanation for the Trump event, that he found out the deep state was going to assassinate him, so he faked his own death, or he faked his own assassination attempt. That's not even plausible. But I think that these are conclusions you can arrive at if you're still contained in the MSM defined box. And we left that a long time ago. This would be the off-world stage perspective. ExploringAgain.com says Chief Crow. Yes. Yeah, Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. I'll have to put a link to that song. Deprogram Truther says My People. Brandon MDM says Slow Fade to Neoplastic Daydreams. Messianic Charlatan has joined us. Ted Striker 2112 says Time to cook and listen to IPS. Symbia gifted 10 memberships. So we have 10 new wrenches. And if you think you can hide, you can't. If you're just lurking, you might be called out because somebody's going to put a wrench in your hands. Ryler05, a Nulful, Angst G, HLG, Evolvement. And if you get these wrenches, it means you get to watch paywalled videos. And I am reading members' comments and uploading these videos for members only. So if you left comments on the latest video, I probably addressed it. And I'll do this generally before the live stream to kind of pre-announce or to announce what's going to follow. Oliver has a Blue Ranch Lodge membership. Daniel Morris, Citizen Z, Cuna Fee, The Gray Bush, and let's see. Mango Penguin says, I don't know any of those people. It's the best. Yeah, it brings them out. Thank you, Symbia. Lord Laney says, new Game of Thrones episode, one-eyed brother betrays younger brother and has his dragon attack him, and the brother has a big ear wound. Real Trump reinforcement tree. Exactly. There's predictive programming, there's concurrent programming, and there's reinforcement programming, which also includes made-for-TV specials about the event that are more real than the event, but ironically, they say, we might show real news footage, so it's graphic. It's like the real news footage is fake. Faker than what they fabricate. It's everything so upside down. It's inverted on purpose. But this is interesting. So I'm going to have to take a look at this new Game of Thrones. There's just so much in the Game of Thrones series. Westeros is the West. Westeros burning. The Red Dragons. I think it's China. The ashes mixing with the snow. Winter is coming. Obviously, nuclear winter. Same thing goes for the, what is it called? I think it was the it was last year. Anyway, they match things up. See, there's this synchronization between the news and the entertainment. So you're watching the news about the Roe v. Wade leak, and then you catch Game of Thrones, and you see a queen being forced to give birth and die in childbirth so she can sire the son, because even though she's the most powerful woman in the world, she's not as valuable as a boy, because patriarchy. And so they reinforce the news with the entertainment, the attitudes. They give you a visual. Oh, look how barbaric it is. And it's not a coincidence. And the people who just consume mainstream news think these are ignorable coincidences. You're connecting dots. You're a conspiracy theorist. You have apophenia. You're mentally ill. It's like, what are you talking about? This is entrainment. This is propaganda. It's not hard to crack. They've been concealing it, and a lot of people have been adding fog to the already foggy Psywar zone here, the theater of Psywar, by saying, well, maybe it's aliens writing the news. Maybe it's God. Maybe it's the Demiurge. Maybe these are synchromystics. And synchromysticism has its place. Synchronicity has its place. But when we're talking about the deliberate synchronization between entertainment and, quote, news, when it's fabricated news, we're talking about something else entirely. And it's about entrainment to this hive mind. And it's monolithic, it's global. And it's so pervasive that you can even find evidence of it on Mountain Dew, on cans of Mountain Dew. We were just talking about, look at all these Mountain Dew cans that seem to be predicting something. And there's a narrative that we're picking up on. The pitch black one just came true in Paris, by the way. And we were already talking about the Super Bowl 47 blackout bowl and its significance right now, leave the world behind. And this blackout narrative has been building. So the fact they would have a blackout is consistent. Also, in white noise, which preceded the East Palestine toxic airborne event train derailment, the Olympics were preceded by not derailments, but a disruption of the railways, which is, again, I think, symbolic of something here. And that's what we're getting to. Anyway, I appreciate that information there about the new Game of Thrones. I'll have to check it out. Deprogram Truther says, really hard to break that programming. Yeah, I've been using the word entrainment because the reason why a lot of people see these synchronicities, these coincidences that are manufactured as more significant, is they're not accounting for the human agency aligning these things. And now I'm pointing out it's parallel. And I think this is the secret message behind Kubrick's Monolith. The two into one, 2001. The 00 is the sun and the moon, the eclipse, the merging of the dream world and the real world. They have dragged us into an alt reality game. They have I'd say they have superimposed a movie over our real lived experiences. There's practically no opt-out. Symbia says, Auto Hoaxamania, brother. I'm pretty sure I've seen Fepe's face on a Hulk Hogan before. For some reason, I have that meme in my mind. I could be Mandela-ing myself. And that is how Mandela effects work. You could hold up two pictures of Hulk Hogan. One with the penguin face, one just regular, and say, which one do you remember? And when you ask them this question like this, you can actually gaslight someone into having a prompted image or a new image somehow confused with an earlier memory. It's called retroactive interference. Interrogators deal with this. This is what results in a faulty eyewitness testimony. Elephantos says, Tim, how do you think the elite ruling class know which events they need to plan to achieve their specific outcome? The only thing that makes sense to me is some sort of looking glass technology. Anytime you say, I don't know how it works, therefore magic, I don't know how it works, therefore super advanced technology, you're tripping over the divine fallacy. It's easy to say, I can't figure out how the magician pulled the rabbit out of the hat. Therefore, his hat is a portal to some parallel universe full of rabbits. No, it's an illusion. If you can't figure it out, it's because you're sitting in your seat watching the magic show and you can't determine from where you're sitting what the magician's doing. You have to get out of your seat. You have to get out of the frame that they put you in, where now you're looking at everything from this one point of view. You have to break that. And what we're doing here is we're not only just wandering around the magic show, we're reading their books. We're reverse engineering their entire operation. So no, they don't have any sort of looking glass technology. They write our future 100 years in advance. They write history. They implement it through, quote, news, which is sometimes it's real reportage, but for the most part, the big events we all talk about are manufactured. They become part of the historic record. And we know this for a fact. How many fake events can you point to that will make it to the history books? How many conspiracy theories that tell the truth will be forgotten? All of them. Their truth gets carved in stone. This is the lie world order. But we have something called the parallel media, in which we maintain a continuity of reality over the course of, well, our lives, I guess. This is not going to stop. At no point will this raft go back to Normieville. Like, we're past the point of no return. We do know too much to be rewired back into it, although we can, like, intentionally blend in. I can speak normie. I can speak wokester. I can speak truther. Not a difficult thing. And once you know their presuppositions, once you know their operating systems, you can communicate to them on their level without triggering, offending, and you can have useful, I think, conversations. I'm not someone to say, oh, normies are zombies. No, they're on our side. They're just blissfully unaware. Infinite Plane Radio.
On the plumber.
Hey, what's up, John the Plumber?
Oh,
What?
I forgot to tell you my prediction the other day. I don't know. I mean, it just came to me. I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but I don't know. When I saw this JD Vance guy, it just like made me think of like all the predictive programming we've seen in the last year. Like every time like we see some kind of like a civil war type thing, like where there's like and I'm a very conservative person, right? But like now I know it's all bullshit. And I'm positive that there's a uniparty, that they're all working together. See, what I think they did is they wanted to stretch the Donald Trump character instead of making it an 8-year thing like they can always do. They said let's make a badass character, or we have to bring in a villain. So we're gonna steal the election. We're gonna give him 4 years, and then we're gonna bring back the Donald Trump. Probably somewhere in the middle of it, they'll terminate the Donald Trump character, and they'll bring in the JD Vance guy, and that's when the Civil War will happen. He seems like, I mean, he seems pretty cool and everything, but he seems like the villain. I mean, all they got to do is give him an eye patch,
Okay.
and he'll be the guy like when the shit goes down.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate that prediction. Glad you got to fill us in. I have another caller. So if that's all you have, JD Vance, Civil War, I'm with you on that.
All right, brother.
All right. Talk to you soon. Infinite Plane Rate. Oh, if you want to call right back, caller, we just dropped that one. Sorry, I had a backup caller. So the JD Vance, he's got a. Does anyone agree he's got a punchable face? Don't sit on his
Hey,
couch.
how's it going?
Hey, what's up, caller?
How you doing? This is Mike from Long Beach.
Oh, Mike from Long Beach. Okay, cool. What's going on out there?
Um, well, I worked in the film industry for 30 years, and I have a lot of friends and family that work in it as well. But I'm thinking that the war in Israel uh, has has tapped from the monies that normally are going into the film industry. The war's sapping that monetary aspect to the film industry.
So do you think there's more money going into psyops in the theater of Psywar than the movie industry?
Yeah, there was like a lever that's moved because of the war machination is more has more power to it than okay it
Sure.
has more power to it than the necessary aspects of maybe the film industry or the beautiful aspects of American life that are given off by the film industry that's not necessarily the way the American life is. It's a picturesque uh, reality that is normally uh, propagated onto the masses.
Yeah, I agree with you here.
So,
You're talking about like the crisis actor or the psyop entertainment complex is what I call it, is the dominant influence. Entertainment is
okay.
a subset of it, and it's interesting to see when they go from entertaining us in one way to entertaining us with terror theater and stuff that we're, supposed to believe is real.
Okay. So
But
do you think that I'm on the right track, that the monies that are being extracted from the film industry here in Hollywood are being maybe put into the war machination in Israel,
it could
or
be, well, it could be anywhere. I mean, like for example,
or
NASA, and Jim Fetzer said he believes NASA should just be considered an extension of the CIA. They're taking billions of dollars, and I think their primary objective, and this is global, is world view formation or worldview warfare. This is the basis of the mind war, is keeping us all on the same sheet. And so I think that the primary function of media isn't even separate into entertainment and news. It's all monolithic, and they will do whatever it takes to keep everybody in the same exact train of thought. And right now, it seems like they've effectively merged the two. People don't know what's real and
okay.
fake. Like, what do you think about the Trump thing? Do you think Trump was really shot, or do you think that was staged?
I'm still processing that, but I think that there's there was such a loss of security in the process that that there's a possibility that that it could have been staged. Yeah, I've talked about that with a friend of mine, and there's a possibility that it was real still for me. So I'm still on the fence. But there's a fence there, which is amazing to me, that it shouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's true. The fact that you even have doubts that it's within the realm of possibility that it's a big lie, that's a big step forward. Because that's better
Yeah,
than see, the fact that you're suspending judgment is skepticism. It's not about
yeah,
rushing
yeah.
to a conclusion.
Just like with Kennedy, the assassination thereof. I grew up with Joe Ball, who was on the Warren Commission, and the Warren Commission was ripe with Freemasons, and Freemasons. Gerald Ford, who later became president, Arlen Specter, who a famous Freemason as well, who came up with the magic bullet theory along with my friend, the lawyer Joseph Ball, and then uh, Earl Warren himself was a Freemason, and then the man who chose Earl Warren, Johnson, was a Freemason. So and Johnson, so I actually have a story as well that I came from Freemasonry because old lodges in Scotland from my grand uncle, but um, pushed myself out of the organization over time because of nefarious activity. And I see that they use a lot of tool sets to maintain control over what they have in society. It's kind of a secret society that's a society of secrets rather than a secret society now, because so many things are known about it, and people are piecing and parceling it apart, which is a good thing because it's a truer democracy, or move toward a truer democracy rather than putting George Washington up there or Benjamin Franklin and saying, "Oh, these are exemplary Freemasons," and I don't think there should be an exemplary Freemason, because there's the opposite thereof as well that I ran across over time in Freemasonry. And that's why I didn't want to be a part of that organization anymore.
Well, to me, it's the secrecy thing, because I think what they have done, and I ascertain this from
But
their own
total,
initiations, is the
yeah,
split.
totally. The Master Mason degree is about secrecy, to keep inviolate the secrets of a brother Master Mason, murder and treason excluded. That's something to that extent. It's been years since I took the obligation.
And then the thing is, you go in with the hood on, the hoodwink, the sack over the head,
Yeah, yeah.
and that symbolizes the outsiders who are profane, who haven't been shown the light. So what does that say? It says the elite see everyone else as hoodwinked. And I contend that the modern day hoodwink, the wool over the eyes, is literally the TV screen. And until you've been initiated into how they manipulate the news, you're one of the ignorant. You're not one of the insiders.
I agree. I agree. And there's two sides to the coin of news as well. You have Fox Nation, and you have CNN and ABC. So it's control from both sides rather than not. So it's definitely a lot going on in the world that most people don't know about.
Yeah, it's because they think the news is there to inform them. And my main point here is that there may be a lot of good people in the hierarchy of media, but as you get closer to the top, it's all one. And they're playing both sides. And the thing about media itself is that it's not there to inform you about the world. You have to inform yourself. The media's job is to conform you to a prefabricated worldview. It's pretty much just
Yeah,
indoctrination, and people don't see it as such.
I agree. I agree. And I went against that construct over time in Freemasonry, and I had three Long Beach PD officers try and well, they did 5150 me, but they were unsuccessful in circumventing my credibility over time. Um, I went out of my way. So I know a lot about what happened with Trump because uh, when Obama was elected, I went to the White House of the West and let it be known that I was on my way there through a 911 phone call, which is under lock and key in Beverly Hills, because that's where the White House of the West is. And I went there to clear my name because I still thought, well, I could still be, clear my name and then I could be a Freemason again. And, these guys will go down for their wrongdoings, which is folly on my part for thinking that way. But, they have under a court order, it's sealed my records in Beverly Hills, which is where I was taken into custody by Secret Service, and then they 5150 me at the Geffen Center, which is interesting because David Geffen is a filmmaker as well, and I heard a story about David Geffen saying that there's something wrong with the imagery on my television, and he had some people come in and take a look at it in his house, and then they fixed the problem, but he was aware of optics that most normal people wouldn't be aware of.
Such as,
Hold on a second. Just the optics of the television, because he's so used to such fine-tuned instruments. And he's always on top of a new telly. He has a top-notch telly or projector system. So, but I thought it was interesting because at the time um, I was going through constructs because um, the Freemasonic fabric had me hoodwinked, and I also worked on Donnie Darko,
oh,
which
really?
caused me a lot of
You worked
yeah.
on
I
Donnie
worked on
Darko. Okay, and
yeah I worked on
who's the director on that one? Is it his name? Is it Richard Kelly? Is that his name?
I don't recall what the director's name is. I never remember being introduced to him. I never went to uh, what's the guy's name from Dirty Dancing? Who was in that movie? He was a pedophile in the movie.
Oh
I
yeah,
never
Yeah,
became
Kurt
aware of that.
Russell. Kurt Russell.
Not Kurt Russell. No, it wasn't Kurt Russell.
No, no, is it
Um,
no Patrick Swayze? Is that it?
I just played. Yeah, I was a grip
Yeah.
on it. I'm noted as a grip. So I was going through constructs, where I was wondering if I was in some sort of MK Ultra uh, grouping where I'm brought onto set and things happen and I see pieces of the puzzle. Because
Ah,
as a grip, you don't see the whole film unless you're on principal photography and you're one of the crew members rather than uh, an additional grip. So a lot of stuff I was bouncing around in the beginning of my career and caused me to have some strife because that was a pretty trippy movie. My friend Tony uh, went to high school at Loyola High School where they have the dog with the axe in its head, and the axe in the head is something that I later realized was bludgeoning in the forehead, which is what happens in the Masonic degree in the third degree. And so that kind of triggered something in my mind, and over time, because I watched the film and then I said, oh, okay. And then there's Drew Barrymore and there's Hollywood royalty, who was with Frank Capra. Her great grandfather was with Frank Capra. He plays Old Man Potter in the banking industry. And I thought to myself, why would the banking industry demonize bankers back then, but here in the current construct that we're in, there's a lot of people demonizing the Fed and the Federal Reserve's under attack because of uh, the coinage from Russia and China and
Well, let me add one thing
uh,
here, because the Donnie Darko connection is fascinating considering this Trump thing. Donnie Darko is well known to be a repository of predictive programming for 9/11, for Trump, for COVID, for
yeah,
Pizzagate, and for the head wound. And interestingly, the director, it's Richard Kelly. His father worked for NASA and did
okay.
the Viking rover on Mars. So you have the
Oh, because
NASA connection
Jack
to this
Black is
movie.
supposedly
Yep.
Jack Black is supposedly NASA lineage as well. His mother worked for NASA, from what I understand. Go back to
Okay.
Kelly. What you were saying?
Well, I'm just saying that,
Well,
yeah, so the director's father worked for NASA, and then he does this movie, which has all kinds of predictive programming. And Donnie Darko, in the subtext, actually represents Donald Trump. And that's one of the lenses through which we've been viewing this movie, that it's actually foretelling a lot of what's already happened with Trump. Even we're looking at, even to today, but it references Pizzagate, Joe Biden. The movie takes place in 1988. Joe Biden's running for president. All kinds of foreshadowing.
oh yeah, Pizzagate, yeah, more of that and pedophilic aspects of the film industry, which kind of stayed away from as a grip, and I never really a gripping. I never saw an Hasidic Jew on set, which I thought was an anomaly. Um, when 9/11 happened, uh, I thought that the film industry could be attacked. At which time I was a security guard and talked to Sony Studios about the potential for nuclear-driven attack, dirty bomb, and they summarily tried to end my career at that time. And because I was bringing up the potential for threats, not threatening, and because I have family and friends who work in film and television, thought that there was an anomaly that the film industry didn't go into some sort of crisis mode after 9/11, being that we were attacked by Arab or Muslim entity.
Fascinating. By the way, a commenter, Jessica Lynn, says Richard Kelly did Donnie Darko, The Box, and Southland Tales. And Southland Tales and The Box are also connected to Trump. So I'll have to look at these as well. So what we've been looking at in this channel is how often these Hollywood movies do foreshadow future characters, future events that happen on the world stage in a way that's impossible if it's not pre-planned.
It seemed like he was projecting this Crooks kid. It seemed like he was projecting that he was going to do something. He was looking at aspects of Biden's agenda and Trump's agenda, and then on that day he chose to go to somewhere in Butler, Pennsylvania, from what I understand. And then what happened. It's amazing that he missed. It's miraculous that he did in some extent, because if he missed, if he hadn't missed, our democracy would not be talking about Olympics right now. We'd be talking about an assassination that relates to an assassination that should never have happened. Because, for instance, I became friends with William Binney. Binney was a whistleblower in the NSA, and he and I became fast friends. And I went to the West Coast premiere of his movie called A Good American, and it's about him creating this program machination called Thin Thread, and
About a
it
code breaker. Okay, a code breaker. Okay, whistleblower
programs,
William Binney. Okay, fascinating. He resigned after
yeah,
September 11th. Okay.
he and I became fast friends, and he brought me and my family, or my friend, some of my family, my uncle, my aunt, my brother, my friend Rob. Can't remember if there's anyone else there, but to the West Coast uh, premiere of his movie, A Good American, and it shows you that his machination, Thin Thread, which was tied to the NSA servers and the data mining structures around the world, they would have caught in San Diego, at least, from one of the women on the movie said, they would have caught them in San Diego. 9/11 would have been prevented if they had kept Thin Thread up and running. But they told them to shut it down. And these were people in our government, NSA, CIA, presidential apparatus, that said, shut it down. Or that's that's what was implied. But also they did say that they were told to shut it down, but it was implied that Dick Cheney and Bush had to shut it down. So
I
after they
see.
shut it
I
down,
see. So the
after they
premise
shut it
here
down,
is that this thing called thin thread, had they activated it or had they employed it, they would have prevented it. So it's another one of these things that leads to the inside job. They let it happen, what they call let it happen on
yeah,
purpose, a
letting it happen. Yeah,
lie hops.
yeah, and he's in like a 13th Circuit Court. He's waiting indefinitely. Probably he says they want him to die by diabetes, and where his parts of his body are being removed over time because of diabetes. That they're going to take him out that way. Um, but he can't get into Supreme Court to fight for a restructuring of the NSA apparatus, whereby uh, innocent citizens are protected in privacy and that our constitutional rights are reformed. But that goes into aspects of Obama and Biden looking into NSA transcripts or what have you, information data about Trump, saying that he was tied to Russia, and the emails of Russian Gate emails and Pizzagate or whatever that have to do with uh, William Binney acting as a confidant and someone to go to for information to Trump. They're friends, from what I understand.
Still friends.
Uh,
Interesting.
still, still friends from what I can make out. I don't know for sure because William Binney went black, or he went silent. His numbers went undone after I spoke to a girl speaking German, and I know the Germans were involved in keeping him secreted away and keeping him safe over time, which is interesting because the Germans in World War II and all that, and how we're trying to safeguard our democracy. But I know that certain things in my stuff that I went across, I became friends with a guy named Coit Redford Lyles, who is the accountant for the Russell Trust Fund. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. What is the Russell Trust Fund?
Russell Trust Fund was compromised during the Boston bombing
Uh huh.
because the wife of the two brothers uh, was a Russell, Catherine Russell.
Catherine Russell. Okay, okay. Catherine Russell. And I found an article here, Boston bombing suspect's widow. Okay, I vaguely recall this woman. I'll have to revisit the story.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I was talking with before that happened. I was talking with, which was strange. I was talking with Coy Redford Laws, who runs the Russell Trust Fund, and knows, down to pennies, what the monetary aspects of it are. And I sent them a check, just to try and integrate myself into the Skull and Bones, which I was successful in doing. A check for $13, and that's because I believe that we have 13 arrows on our dollar bill. And excuse me, there was 13 colonies in the beginning of this country, and also at the time, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that I was describing 13 for my union, and then just before we called, I was talking to my friend, and we were watching "Want to Be a Member," Bimbo's initiation, and there's a door, number 13 door there, and there's a skull and bones symbol and skull and bones mirror in the skull and bones door, and then inside this 13 door, there's a skull and bones thing, and
And
just
isn't J.D. Vance Skull and Bones? Somebody started this rumor that J.D.
I don't know.
Vance.
I know what's his name. He's an economist at the Booth School of Economics. Um, what's his name? Let me think here for a second. Um, anyhow, he's an economist that sometimes goes on Fox News, but not of late. And he was the economic advisor for Obama when he was dealing with the bank debacle, and he's a Skull and Bonesman as well. He teaches at Booth School of Economics. You can look him up, economist, Booth School of Economics, and then Obama, and he'd probably show up. But he said I had conversations with him as well about
Dana
tracing
Milbank.
through the snow.
Dana Milbank.
What's
Is that
that?
Dana Milbank?
That's not him. No, it's
No.
look up Skull and Bonesman.
Oh, Goolsby.
Um,
Is it Goolsby?
Austin Goolsby, yeah,
Okay, Goolsby.
Austin Goolsby. Right. We've had conversations over time. I talked to him about putting mercury balls in outer space, which is like an off the wall idea that I had for a reconnaissance around the world, so you could circumnavigate through the mercury images that would be on the other side of the earth, that would be analog in nature and wouldn't be compromised. And he said that they weren't probably interested. Some uh, funding organization he was tied to, some sort of hedge fund, I think, or something like that. He said, no, we probably wouldn't be interested in something like that.
Well, he's one of the
Um,
13. Goolsby is one of the 13 most powerful members of the Skull and Bones. Very interesting connection there.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, I made that connection through phone calls on my own. He didn't contact me. I contacted him. Then he said something to the effect, I don't think you're supposed to be calling me anymore. And so I thought that might have been after I talked to Court Redfern Lyles and mentioned that I spoke with him. But, because there was a lot of compartmentalization that had happened before the Boston bombing. But after the Boston bombing, I realized, which was strange, that Mark Wahlberg plays a protagonist in that movie uh, about the Boston bombings.
Yeah,
And I have,
I call that reinforcement programming, where they create a made-for-TV version of an event, and that they reinforce whatever version that they want to cement into the historic record, and they subtract all the conspiracy stuff. And I saw that, and I thought, okay, Wahlberg's there whitewashing what I think is a pretty easy to deconstruct operation. But
yeah, yeah, I agree with you. That's interesting. You have a better thumb on all this information than I have.
well, we study this stuff all the time, and these events are all interconnected. You know, whether we're talking about the Boston bombing, the spate of mass shootings, terror attacks, there's a hidden hand behind it all, and there's a place where it
Okay.
integrates with the movie industry. Where my contention
Okay.
is that all the big movies are actually an extension of government. It's government propaganda directly reaching the subjects, bypassing all kinds of laws against propaganda and brainwashing. I think it's that bad.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know for sure if I was brainwashed like an MK Ultra, whereby you go into a set and you think you're doing something all day long along the lines of filmmaking, but you're actually being brainwashed over time, or at least I thought that'd be a good idea for a film.
You may be onto something though, like in a real way, because I mean I've studied cult initiation, brainwashing. I was in the military, and then I followed that up by joining a couple cults. I was in the Freemasons for a little while too, and so
Okay.
I've experienced that worldview shift when they say like you can tell a person by the five people they hang around with the most. It's true. Our environments do have a lot to do with how our worldview manifests and what results you get, the direction you take in life.
Oh,
And I think it's certainly the case that a production company, a company itself, can be a cult. And as far as MK Ultra, what we're really talking about is this area where we're just barely, I think, scratching the surface. Like how much control is exerted over people through subconscious or subliminal methods or things that we cannot detect.
I agree. I agree. I think because as I've been examined by psychologists over time, or psychiatrists, or both, um, and came out clean on the other side, they realized that my story was true, and that what had transpired with the drugs being distributed out of my lodge, Freemasons coming to my house that were Long Beach PD, 5150 me illegally under federal law, and then
5150, for people who don't know, this is the involuntary hold process, weaponized psychiatry where they can say you're crazy. Did they gang stalk you?
gang stuff. What does that mean?
Like, for example, um, when you're part of a cult or a group and you decide to break away and do your own thing again, and suddenly you find it difficult to avoid running into one of them. Like they just suddenly appear where you are,
There,
anything
there
like
were a
that.
few times that happened. Um, there were a few times that happened, and then I inadvertently brought myself into their machinations, and then one of them said that I came to this bar called O'Connell's in Long Beach, and that was his bar. But then they violated restraining order stuff because it doesn't matter if it's his bar or that he regularly goes to. It wasn't part of the restraining order. That, but the DA got involved, and they had a bunch. They were definitely making my life difficult through restraining orders, in my opinion. And then because of the 51, before that happened, there was a 5150 process that they went through, and I went to the White House of the West. Did I tell you that earlier?
You brought it up earlier about your trip to the White House, yes, and you said you called
Yeah,
in, you spoke to their Secret
I made
Service.
it. I made a 911 phone call and talked to Long Beach's dispatcher 911 and stayed on the phone with them until I met with Secret Service, and they put a gun to my head because I said something about bringing with me a logic bomb, and that's a construct of computer languages or vernacular. It's not something that's like a time bomb or something like that. So that was probably a good thing I didn't say that, but I knew what I was talking about because the logic bomb that I was bringing with me to them was to undermine the hoodwinking that was happening with me and the discrediting of my credibility over time by 5150 me. And then they said that I talked about the secrets, and I have all my documentation from Grand Lodge because they had a Grand Lodge hearing, a kangaroo court, because I wasn't able to go there because court hearing that my court hearing that transpired because I broke the lodge doors and windows of my vehicle. And then to go backtrack from that, I was on a phone call with 911 saying that my police chief shouldn't be able to continue as police chief. He should not only not be running for sheriff, LA County, Jim McDonnell, but he should also step down as police chief of Long Beach because he vetted the shooting of my friend Doug Zerby, where he was murdered, possibly not murdered, but what do they call it? Manslaughter by the officers in Long Beach.
Wow. Now, you mentioned Long Beach. I came across this article recently about how then Attorney General Kamala Harris had an aide who was connected to a Masonic fraternal police department, which claimed Knights Templar lineage and jurisdiction in 33 states. Is this something you think is likely to be true, that police departments are ultimately controlled by a secret society?
I think that the Fraternal Order of Police is embedded into the apparatus because Scottish Rite gives out awards here in Long Beach to police officers for good behavior, female or male. But the male portion, I've said to females on duty or whatever, that the Freemasonic structure is only for males, and they supersede females, and that's why you don't see a lot of female chiefs of police or fire department because they're both one and the same. And also, I realized I was told not to talk badly about the Royal Order of Jesters, and the Royal Order of Jesters, they get together in something called the Book, and they have police officers guarding the event called the Book, and they dress in uniform, and they guard the Book from being infiltrated by Cowans and eavesdroppers per
Okay,
se.
that would be us. We
Um,
would be the Cowens on this channel because we expose all the secrets. And when I was involved in there was this discussion, and there was a lot of people who were involved in this topic. We're criticizing NASA and talking about is the Earth flat, and you had this conference, and I found a lot of the people who were organizing these conferences or connected to it were all weirdly connected to seemingly a lot of them were police, cops, and one of them was describing to me how her husband was a member of the Royal Order of Jesters and shared all kinds of information about that group. And I remember looking at their little goblin mascot with the crown
yeah,
and the thing on his. It's absurd looking, but I've heard some stories. They're kind of like
yeah,
they're Shriners.
you have to be a Shriner in order to become a jester. Yes.
Now, do you agree that, because it's something we've observed, it seems to be the case that they're recruiting, that many agents, many intelligence operatives are recruited from the jails. Like that's what we've encountered here.
Okay.
Like, for example, confidential informants might be somebody is going to face many years for some terrible crimes. So they end up on the internet spreading conspiracy theories. And you find out, yeah, these are parolees who have cops as handlers. So I've been finding a lot of law enforcement and conspiracy theory promulgation connection as well, which is kind of interesting.
There Freemasonries going to law enforcement. You have gangs in sheriff department that are literally nefarious gangs that they get a tattoo when they finally shoot someone or decease them, and that's kind of scary for me because I go to LA on a regular basis, and that's their area. And also, I've spoken out against one of their leaders, Jim McDonnell. Luna seemed to be all right until he gave me an award for heroism for pulling somebody out of a burning vehicle, and I shook his hand over at the Carpenter Center here in Long Beach. And then I made a 911 phone call later saying that it was interesting that they slurry slopped the street, that the officer who was also involved in that accident, who I didn't pull out of his truck because I couldn't get into it to get him out of there until the fire department got there, but that they slurry slopped the street, and that the evidence of which cars were going where was undermined if that was something that had to do with it, because that officer, I went to the same hospital as him that night, and he said that the other guy had a better story than him, which he was implying guilt on his part for the accident. And then they incarcerated me for 2 weeks.
Well, for people who don't know, they have these things called the penal codes, where at every degree you swear an oath, a blood oath. And if you violate the oath, you're.
Slow down, because it's breaking up.
Oh yeah, I'm mentioning the penal code. The idea that yeah, if you go against the cult, there used to be these
Yeah,
rules in place where you swear this oath. If you violate it, they cut your throat or disembowel
yeah. They
you.
remove your tongue severely and place it where the tide regularly ebbs and flows, just like that guy from uh, the P2 lodge in Italy. They put bricks in his pockets or something like that, but I don't know that they removed his tongue.
Right. Well, this is all Masonic lore, but it's fascinating to look at this stuff because these are like implied threats. And you're like, well,
Yeah,
why
that,
aren't there any whistleblowers? Well, because you have this system of blood oaths, and whether or
well,
not they enforce them.
I was a whistleblower, but the DA got involved and undermined my constitutional rights because I'm not under the obligation as a Freemason at the time. I felt that I wasn't able to talk about things up to speed with what they needed to understand why I was scared that Doug Zerby was assassinated or snuffed out and had a relationship with me because he used to live in my house, and I was going kind of toe to toe with the the prostitution because two of my past masters, John Isidore Brunac and Jeffrey John Grill from International City Lodge, Long Beach, which don't kind of strangely have uh, 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 restraining orders against me, although the other officers said that I created this conspiracy, and that's why they have restraining orders. But the guys that the conspiracy would be about, which is not a conspiracy, they didn't want to bring them into the picture.
Right. The term conspiracy theorist is just meant to discredit you. And on this channel, we have been exposing or revealing a lot of what it seems to be, hallmarks of intelligence agencies or secret societies and their signatures on various psyops. Well, anyway, there was this character who went around Canada burning Masonic lodges on March 30th. This was like in 2019. And he did like three of them in a row. And, he went to
That's
jail for it.
that's not that's not the right thing to do.
No, it's certainly not. But my point of it is, it looked to me like an inside job, and that it was
Okay.
staged in order to make it look like anybody on the internet who talks about this stuff is a threatening person to the organizations. So it's one of these things like Scientology does it, where they pretend that somebody's attacking them, so they can get into a defensive posture and brand their critics as dangerous. And I've seen that as
Yeah.
sort of a tendency lately that they're trying to create this perception that conspiracy theorists are dangerous people.
What the last thing that went through my head before I broke my lodge doors and windows was that they shouldn't get away with the undermining of truths that deal with pedophilia that relate to Freemasonry. And there was a guy named Art Meza who molested his stepdaughter, who it came down to a meeting in the dining room area whether or not he had sexually molested his daughter, and whether or not we should remove him from the wall.
Now, wait,
And his picture.
is this something that is endemic to Freemasonry, or is it something that is like with the churches where it's just everywhere? I mean, are we talking about something
I
that's
think
systemic?
I think I'd say it was Freemasonry. A problem with Freemasonry as well because uh, the past master Florian Zukas came in there and said, "Should we take his picture down from the historical wall? Or what should we do with it?" And then I said, "We should burn his picture and take it down from the wall." But if people ask us, it's up to us whether or not we're going to tell them the truth about whether or not why his picture was removed. And then the realization that it should have been in the minutes of the Freemasonic meeting and not in some ad hoc uh, meeting in the kitchen and dining room of the lodge. That there was something that was being hidden from people that would be otherwise engaging in Freemasonry.
Very interesting. Well, there is that tendency to circle the wagons around bad actors, and I've seen this stuff in the church I grew up in, where they protected the priest, sent him to another country, and I'm like, well, really, there's like a conspiracy going on here, and a
Well,
conspiracy that involves maintaining sort of a. I mean, we see this everywhere, though. It's in politics, it's in religion, it's in everywhere, sadly. But I,
yeah, yeah. Well, before I broke the lodge doors and windows, I was on a phone call with 911, and said that Jim McDonald should step down. I told you this earlier. And then I also was on a phone call with Secret Service after that, thank God. And I was talking to them about the potential for Whitney Houston being snuffed out, and that the President of the United States, Obama at the time, had been given indicators that someone close to him would be snuffed out if he didn't do a certain thing as president, and that his freedoms were broken down because of the snuffing of Whitney Houston. They said that probably wasn't the case. And then the police showed up after the 911 phone call. I was in my traffic circle there in Long Beach, and then in the middle of it in the grassy area, and then they said that they approached my car, the two police officers, with their guns drawn, and they pointed them at me. And I said, "I'm on the phone with Secret Service. Would you like to speak to them?" And so they vetted the phone call with Secret Service, and then I said to them at the same time when I was telling them I was on the phone with Secret Service that uh, that that
so let me get this
I
straight, though,
don't
really quick here. So you're suggesting that Whitney Houston was some kind of a hit in order to send a message to the Obamas?
that's what I said to the Secret Service when I was being approached by Long Beach PD with guns drawn. I imagine loaded as well, and then I told them that I was on the phone with Secret Service, and then Secret Service uh, vetted that, and I ended up. He asked me, "Is your emergency done?" Said my emergency lights on, and I told him I had an emergency, and I was talking with Secret Service, and he said, "Is your fucking emergency done?" And I said, "Yes, it's done." And then he said, "You can go, fucking go," something to that extent. But that's under 911 calls, which can be brought up, and the Secret Service records their phone calls as well. So
I see. Well, I didn't know this. Someone in the chat mentioned this. Uh, the daughter of Whitney Houston also was found unconscious, dead in a bathtub, similar to her mother's death, and she died after a coma. I didn't hear about that one. Very
that's
interesting.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't
and
know that. That's interesting.
recently I heard this podcast by Joseph Atwill, this author, and he was talking about J.D. Salinger's book, Catcher in the Rye. And he was decoding that
Uh,
book, and he said Catcher in the Rye contains, if you understand it, if you're a Freemason, you understand it, that it contains a subtext about how Freemasons as the cult is able to assassinate, and how they run the world and they have the power to kill who they need to. And that book later shows up in the hands of shooters like Mark Chapman, who shot John Lennon, and J.D. Salinger.
Oh,
I think Saran had some association with it. So that book, though,
didn't Reagan's uh,
Hinckley,
attempted assassinator?
maybe
Think
Hinckley,
we have one as well?
Hinckley was motivated by Robert De Niro's portrayal of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. But the point of it
Yeah,
here is
interesting.
that J.D. Salinger's book, when it shows up at a death scene, is taken to be then a calling card. Like, this was a hit, this is who did it. Anyway, it's an ominous story, and it kind of comports with a lot of the things that you've been saying.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating call. We've covered a lot of ground. I think it's intriguing that you worked on the Donnie Darko set. We talk about that movie a whole lot. And so you're 1 degree separated from some of the highest level metascripters on the world stage, which is,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting.
But, and by the way, people are asking, how'd you find Infinite Plane Radio?
A friend of mine introduced me to you guys, and I just thought I'd call the number as like a ruse or whatever, but I didn't expect to be talking about all this stuff on the radio or whatever we're on.
Oh, cool. No, this is great. This is great. We appreciate the call and the time. Had you on here for about
I may
43
call you.
minutes. You can call back
I may
anytime.
call you back. I may call you back because there's lots of details over time that relate to the story that I'm sure I'm missing out on. I have witnesses to what transpired, and then the fact that I went to Secret Service and they sealed my record there. I know that that put me in a good position rather than a bad position because that was what I was hoping for. That these guys would back off. Which what did you call it when people circle wagons
Like,
or
gang stalking is what I was calling it. But
yeah, gang stalking. Yeah, that there was a little bit of that, but more was just I was trying to repair my reputation, which was wrested from me because of what had transpired, and also strangely enough, there was the death of Doug Zerby that I was trying to rule out whether or not he was snuffed out or not.
Doug Zerby. Okay, this was 2010 in Long Beach. I haven't looked into this one, but he was killed by police. And so you're suggesting this might be a potential snuffing.
Well, it was allowed to happen because the police, she said, they're not guilty of anything. And the DA went along with it, and the police unions went along with it. And the police unions, was it P. Diddy or whatever his name is, that put the Nazi stuff up on the freeway? He should have taken his billions of dollars that he would have otherwise had and gone after police unions in this country.
Oh yeah, Yay. I think Yay you're talking about. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah, actually, good point there. Well, okay. Well, yeah, definitely call back, and I'm sure we'll have some comments to bounce off of, and there's a lot to digest here, but lots of interesting points, and thank you for taking the time.
Okay, thank you. It was wonderful talking to you.
Likewise. Have a great evening.
Bye bye.
All right, everyone. Interesting call. We get a lot of interesting callers here, and covered a lot of ground here, but it's not often that you speak to someone who has inside views behind the green screen, how things really work, and the connections to Hollywood, police, Freemasonry, all very interesting because we're trying to see how this thing works from the capstone down. And here at the bottom, it's super compartmentalized. It's ignorance. We're all hoodwinked by the digital veil. But higher up you go, yes, it is certainly hierarchical, pyramidal, and there's uh, a structure that's protected by veils of secrecy, NDAs, and blood oaths. Masonic blood oaths are the original non-disclosure agreements. All right, let's see who has chimed in on the comments. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Looks like Ollie Goering is folding laundry. Lean Dion pointed out Whitney's daughter dying the same way. Yeah, this puts another spin on things because my general take on things is pure skepticism. Fake until proven real. Celebrity deaths are very questionable, but we're looking at a culture, secret societies and the like, where murder is actually kind of hardwired into their DNA. It's like part of their general outlook and their MO. The merging of the assassins, the Hashishans, with the Knights Templar and its infusion into the idea of ritualized assassinations, stylized assassinations, the Kennedy assassination. The subtext of the Kennedy assassination has been broken down extensively by James Shelby Downward in his article King Kill 33, and it has a storyline, a Masonic subtext in which the death of Hiram Abiff is actually being portrayed in the death of uh, uh, Kennedy. But it's all layers and layers and layers, as most of you here know. Okay, let's see. Jacques is also folding laundry. Is anybody here not folding their laundry right now? Okay, let's get back on track. I try not to miss any comments, and if I have really standout things, I tend to screen cap them. So here's one. Jessica Lynn said, the scary creature in Stranger Things was called Venka, an anagram for Vance. Like like a J.D. Vance. Right. Venka was the character in Stranger Things, the first created, and then the main character, L, is the 11th. Stranger Things is not only replete with predictive programming for the downfall of the West and the nuke, the ground opens up, hellfire, nuclear winter, but it also has quite a lot that has to do with the mass shooters. A lot of mass shooting events have had significant connections to that movie, so much that Uvalde prompted Stranger Things to put a warning label on season 4, the Uvalde shooting. Sort of like how Amazon put a warning label on season 4 season finale of The Boys because of its relationship to the Trump assassination, timing wise, theme wise, imagery. And these aren't coincidences. The alignment.
Thank you for feeding the Kraken Rock. The IPS appreciates the support.
Yeah, thank you so much for feeding the crack gwyn. And if you don't know what the crack gwyn is, it's a huge raft of penguins. Penguins form a raft on the waters. And here we are navigating the sea of irrelevance where most people are submerged and drowning. And we've got this raft. And as the numbers grow, eventually we're going to be unignorable by the mainstream, the mainland media. And at that point, it'll be like Godzilla coming out of the ocean, the crack gwyn. So appreciate the support very much. This would be impossible without it. And it's not just that. It's not just memberships and donations, but it's also the comments, the calls, the intel. We are a think tank, 6 years strong, consistent membership, same people, same researchers, and we're building. And we're also fine-tuning our methodology to the point here where we're predicting major trends and events based on predictive programming with regularity because we figured out how they bend history. Okay, moving on here. Jay Diggs says Jim Morrison died in a bathtub. Yeah, we should categorize and look at some of these deaths as groups. Like you've got the bathtub deaths, like Matt Perry. The jacuzzi death would probably fall in that same category. His being on 10/28, the night of a lunar eclipse, which has some connections because he plays Chandler Bing, who was born on 4/8, the total solar eclipse. 10/28 being a significant date. First Q drop, Bill Gates' birthday. There are so many connections between that movie, Matt Perry's death, and the movie Leave the World Behind, in which the character Rose, who's based on Donnie Darko, interestingly, is obsessed with finding out how Friends ends. Yeah, that's another thing. Leave the World Behind has a lot of Donnie Darko wired into it. Falling Planes, the character Rose based on Donnie Darko. Lots of overlapping messaging. Then there's the doorknob deaths. How many celebrities hanging on the doorknobs? You've got like there was that one, I think it was the Family Guy. Was it the Family Guy that had the we have so many of these cartoons that have that was actually an example of concurrent programming where the Family Guy was having an episode where Robin Williams is killing himself or something the night that Robin Williams does it. So that was one of these examples of what we call concurrent programming. But the doorknob thing. Then you have the Black Eye Club. Nicotrama says David Carradine. Yeah, was that true? I heard David Carradine, but I don't think it was a doorknob. He was trying on some clothes or something. Had an accident. Okay, we'll go ahead and continue through the notes here. Oh, this is an interesting one. So we've been talking about photographers. Like Richard Drew photographs RFK as he falls to his death. 33 years later, he photographs the falling man, falling from the Twin Towers. Then we have David Gull, the guy who photographed the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear, also photographed George Bush as the news of 9/11 was being whispered into his ear. Well, here's another one. Gene Puskar, AP press photographer for 45 years based in Pittsburgh, and he did this photograph. Focused amid the fire, an AP photographer captures another perspective of the attack on Trump. So here's an image from the front, and it says here, Gene Puskar has been at a wide range of events, including the nuclear accident at 3 Mile Island, the September 11th attacks that downed Flight 93, and now this. I wanted to draw attention to the connection between the nuclear accident at 3 Mile Island and 9/11. So another 9/11 photographer, which isn't that remarkable. These are AP photographers. It's their job to photograph these big events. But we're talking about iconic photos, things that seem to be evidence of staging. But I think there might be something here that he would have been at the 3 Mile Island event as well. And there have been connections and intimations in the media between this event, the shooting of Trump, and the toxic airborne event in Palestine, Ohio, which seems to be a very clear example of foreshadowing for an atomic bomb. There was that article I referenced the other day where, for some reason, the 42 miles, and this has been put out by the Washington Examiner, the 42 miles between Butler, Pennsylvania, and Palestine, Ohio are considered to be the most important 42 miles in American politics. The story here, though, is, of course, that East Palestine, Ohio, is where the train derailment happened, and this was followed by a toxic airborne event that looked like a mushroom cloud, and it was exactly like the movie White Noise. And there were so many so many examples of what we call predictive programming that even the media noticed it. And moreover, some of the actors from White Noise had to be evacuated from East Palestine. Now, the significance of East Palestine is that this is in 2023, before the 10/6 attack or 10/7 attack, Gaza, Israel. So we had this Palestine already being brought up in the context of train derailment and the toxic airborne event in Ohio, which is the heart of it all. It's their slogan. So that also kind of relates to Israel in a way, I think. But there's this connection again that I think is being focused on. This train derailment in Ohio, the heart of it all, I think represented symbolically like a heart attack, the system, the deregulation. They blamed it on Trump, by the way. Greed, the arteries choked up, America having a heart attack. But this story, this narrative, it's continuing now, where in the Paris Olympics, it opens up with a bunch of trains, not derailed, but there's sabotage. And then we're looking, okay, there's got to be some kind of intimation about nukes, atomic bombs, that's going to show up with this Paris Olympics. And sure enough, you have the sequence with the Statue of Liberty from Planet of the Apes, post-nuke apocalypse, where the apes and the people worship the nuke. So there's that. And then the band Gojira that opens up the Olympics. Gojira is just another name for Godzilla, which is Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuke. It was created to be just that, a personification. So we're getting there. And then, of course, we have the whole thing with the blackout. All right, let's continue. I want to get through as many of my notes as I can. Here's J.D. Vance posing with hot dogs. So I don't know if anything's changed. Like if something's true once, if it's true in 2016, 2017, is it still true in 2024? Because back in 2016, a politician eating hot dogs was a revelation about what they do in their dungeons but beneath the pizza restaurants. So your preference for hot dogs or pizza determines something about you. And they would make all these inferences. So, for example, ice cream. Joe Biden eats ice cream. What does that mean? And they retired him, by the way, on National Ice Cream Day. But ice cream has some kind of connotation. So, anyway, J.D. Vance, according to QAnon lore, which is deep MAGA, I mean, this isn't something I believe in. This is just their thing. And unless this has changed, this is true. J.D. Vance drinks the blood and adrenochrome of little boys. There's no other way to interpret this, unless this has changed. Is there any expert on Q who can tell me, is it tacos now or is it still hot dogs? Did J.D. Vance not just reveal that he is a pedovore? I mean, there has to be some consistency with trutherism, if you ask me. Okay, moving on. We talked about this yesterday. I wanted to kind of get into it a little bit more. Uh, the Jasper fires being the next Maui. We talked about the offended Christians as a result of the Olympics opening ceremony. And again, I think it's the Dionysus worshippers who ought to be really mad about it, if we're talking about appropriation. Okay, let me bring this up. Fight the Flat Earth asked me, do you want to debate? Most of you here know who Fight the Flat Earth is, and I want to read you my response. Hey, Green Smoke, thank you for joining. Green Smoke is now a member of the Blue Wrench Lodge. Lean Dion says, Gojira sang a French Revolution song. Right next to the decapitated Marie Antoinette. Okay, let's see. All right, let me go ahead and read this. He says, hey, want to debate? And I don't think there is a legitimate debate. Flat Earth, round Earth, there is no legitimate debate. You're talking about untestable model from your perspective versus untestable model. Both need to be validated before you can bring it to the debate table. I'm still in a place of agnosticism, which I think is far more defensible than saying, well, I trust the screen. Just because I don't trust the screen doesn't mean I have to default to some ridiculous caricature model that they've created to ridicule those who know that NASA is a liar. But he invited me to a debate. I didn't say no. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, this is Jurassic.
Hey, what's up, Jurassic? We're on the countdown. 5 more days, 6 more days.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling. But just listen to all your viewers. I just want to make sure they understand that if it doesn't happen this year, like I said, there's still one more year, and that's because it's in the reset period. Of course, nobody's going to understand unless you know my videos. And you'll see in the near future more information on the reset. But I believe it's still going to happen this year. But there's just one more year, and then next year is a possibility. But I still believe, that it's still going to happen on August 4th. I just want to make sure you guys understand that I'll be doing this one more year because, I still have 6/11 coming next year, and then we'll see what happens. But you know why I was calling? I heard you're talking about J.D. Vance. Now, I don't know nothing about him doing whatever he does with the with whatever you were just talking about.
Right. Yeah, J.D. Vance. I didn't know anything about him until just recently, and there's some fake news story about him and something he wrote in a memoir, which is probably fake, but it doesn't matter if it's fake. People believe what they want. But someone said his name is an anagram for Vecna, which is the bad guy in Stranger Things, and Stranger Things has connections here to Trump because the character who mind controls the main character, he's the mad scientist. He's played by Matthew Modine, who played Joker in Full Metal Jacket. Well, Joker in Full Metal Jacket has the target on the side of his head, and he represents JFK. And it was that had me looking at Trump's hat with the 45-47 on it that had me emphasize this is a Kubrick production, and he's going to get capped there. But anyway, that movie has a lot of connections to even Seattle, because at the end, it's called I think it's called the town is called Hawkins, but I think it represents Seattle. And at the end, the ground cracks open, and you got this hellfire and this nuke-like scenario. But I'm pretty sure it's Seattle.
What movie is that? I mean, what show is that?
Stranger Things.
I know, but is there a certain episode or
Yeah,
just one?
Stranger Things. I think it's season 4 finale. I'll have to double
Season
check.
four finale.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Stranger
Yeah.
Things finale. There's the ground opening up, and I think it's
Oh yeah, I
definitely.
definitely have to check that out. But you know why I was calling? Oh, by the way, the Stranger Things. I think Jessica was telling me. I think it was her that something about the guy who made that Stranger Things was as a twin and born, and they started in '84. Is that right? I don't know. I
I'll
don't
have,
know about
I'll,
it.
I'll have to look, but
Yeah,
yeah, but to get back to what
but
you were saying, did you have any additional news on Vance?
well, no, I just wanted to make sure people understood that right now, with the Vance having all this trouble and stuff, it would be a good reason for Trump to go there to kind of cool things
Ohio.
down with the people in Ohio.
Right. Okay. And see, you've been pointing out Ohio this whole time. So Ohio is
Right.
now center stage, where they're saying from Palestine, Ohio to Butler, Pennsylvania, 42-mile stretch, most important point. So that's a focal point. And then Vance has all the Ohio connections. And you've been pointing out that Ohio for some time seems to be the place where this Trump thing is going to happen. And it's not on the schedule, but now it might be. You might be onto something here.
Yeah, and of course I said that he was going to pick somebody from Ohio, but I was thinking it was either going to be some I forgot the Jim something Jordan. But anyway, forget about that. But look, there was another reason why I called. Do you remember uh, there was a guy who was related to the royal family who had a head wound? Did you know that?
No, no. Who is that?
This, yeah, look it up and watch it. Look at his name. It's Thomas Kingston.
Okay, and Thomas, of course, means twin. Okay, Thomas Kingston, so devastating. And this was pretty recent, huh? Um,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, not
he
too
was
long ago.
45.
Hmm.
Traumatic head wound. So you have 45 Trump reference, traumatic head wound. The King thing. Fascinating. I had not heard about this.
Yeah, I did a whole video on it when it first happened. So you have the Thomas, which means twin, King, of course, and TON has the Washington connection. It's got the TON. But so you have the King, of course. Washington's in King County, and Elvis is known as the King. And of course, MLK was killed where Elvis lived and died in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's all about the King. And now Seattle's named after Martin Luther King. So so you know that they're planning to destroy this place, obviously. But anyway, with the Thomas Kingston, you got to see this. So he was born on June 22nd, 1978. Okay, so he's born in 78, and Trump turned 78 this year, right? And he was born on 6/22/78. He died on 2/25 of last year. Oh no, was it this year? Oh man,
It was this
hold
year.
on
I
one
think I
sec.
think it was this
Oh yeah,
year.
yeah. So he died on 2/25 this year, and let me tell you exactly how many days, exactly what it was from his birth date to his death date. Exact amount of days. It's 45 years, 8 months, 4 days.
4584. This is again code referencing this Trump thing, and 84. Again, I mentioned this earlier that on Amazon they put a little warning label on the season finale of Boys because of the Trump assassination connections with the guy called the Homelander who's based on Trump with his bloody face. That's season 4, episode 8. So another 4-8.
Wait. Which one was this?
It's
Which
called
show?
The Boys, season 4,
Oh
episode
yeah,
8.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
even the
I
mainstream
remember you
news,
telling
they
me.
were like they put a warning label on it because it's just like the Trump assassination, and the Homelander had already been pointed out as Trump a long time ago. So that there again, the 4-8 reiterates what you've been pointing out, that same exact code. So that's Obama's
Right,
birthday. Obama's birthday. That's the deal.
right. And let me tell you this: the amount of days that Thomas Kingston was alive. Like I said, it was 45 years, 8 months, 4 days. So everything connects to Trump. But listen to this: on a leap year, Trump's birthday is the 166th day on a leap year, right? And this year was a leap year. It was the amount of days this guy was alive. The 45 years, 8 months, 4 days. The amount of days was 16684 or 85. You see that? It's 84 or 85 if you add the day. So it's 16684 if you don't add the day, 16685 if you add the day. So there's your connection to 8485 because because it's a leap year. So eight
Right.
four lands on 85. Yeah.
Well, I'm of the opinion that this year seems like it would make sense for a few reasons, and one of them being that the Rodney King beating was brought back into awareness at the very beginning of last year when they killed Thomas Nichols, like a Rodney King like beating. Well, now there's a movie coming out based on the LA riots. So this is all kind of coming out at the same time, and I think it's building up to something, this King stuff. So you mentioned Kingston. And now we're at the 116th anniversary of the FBI. They just turned 116. And the 116 code is all over this, like Trump getting shot at 6/11. So I'm thinking this would be the time that FBI, the world's preeminent psyop production company, would be doing their magnum opus. I think 116 would be very poetic.
Yeah. There's just no way that him being shot supposedly shot at 611 is a coincidence. That's absolutely impossible. I
And
mean,
and one more thing, the House of the Dragon season finale is on Sunday, which is 8/4, and that show apparently has a Civil War theme right now. And they said there's a character in there. Someone had left a comment who has some kind of attack where his ear is damaged. Lord Dorkington, or yeah, someone in the chat had mentioned it. I'll pull it up. But apparently, in the new House of the Dragons, there's something about an ear being damaged.
and is that the final episode?
Season finale. Yep, exactly.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
I'm going to try to get a clip on that and I'll upload it probably tomorrow.
Yeah. And I told you in the show, Lucifer goes missing and is presumed dead on August 4th.
Okay, that's weird. Missing and presumed dead on August 4th. Fascinating. I there's so much there's so many shows. It's impossible for one person to watch them all, but we have eyes and
And
ears everywhere. But wow.
yeah. And can you check? I think Lucifer's 45. He's going to be 46 this year. But is he? Can you check that? Tom Ellis. How old he is?
Another Tom and his name is Ellis. Yeah, he's 45 right now.
Yeah, there you go. That's another connection. And Tom Elvis. You get what I'm saying? Thomas twin Elvis. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. And with Elvis, to me, I mean, it really comes down to L, which is Saturn. The whole concept here, the Space Needle, all these symbols all kind of come down to the same few. But yeah, Tom Ellis, fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And of course the EL. Just real quick on the EL. Of course, yeah, I know you think it means. I mean, I'm sure whatever you're saying is right, but EL means God in Hebrew. That's the real important thing. And EL, and where else would they rebirth? Because they're gonna birth Elvis, out of the sea in Seattle. When I say that, I mean his image, his name, or the number of his name is going to come out of that place after this event. So where else would they birth the EL other than the EL state? And what is the EL state? Do you know what the EL state is?
no, what is that?
Seattle is the anagram
Oh,
for
L
EL state.
State, L State.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's where they will birth EL. You understand? And guess what birth EL equals exactly in gematria?
I'm guessing 42.
No, Lucifer.
Oh, okay, 74.
Yeah, well, it equals exactly Lucifer. I mean, not just the 74, every number. Yeah, we're not talking about just one number, every number. Backwards, forwards, reduce. You get what I'm saying?
Yep. And
Hmm.
when I saw Trump, okay, so Trump had disappeared after his ear was wounded. We finally see him again, his return, and they made it very dramatic. He walks out onto the RNC stage, and they had the name Trump behind him, and it looked just like the Elvis comeback special with the reflection on the floor. And when I saw that, that really cemented it. And you mentioned it too, that the White House
Yep.
looks exactly like Graceland. So
Yep.
this merging of Trump and Elvis. They're doing it deliberately. Like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's there. And then in the last few days, there's been a few Elvis references he's made, but it's undeniable at
yeah,
this point.
yeah. And make sure you tell everybody how Washington. It looks like its head. that Washington State looks like Elvis's head.
Oh yeah,
The very yeah, yeah, and the reason I'm saying that because that could be the image that they show to make Elvis come into play here, and and don't forget they were calling that place the Chop Zone during the pandemic
right.
because they're gonna chop it, they're
The
gonna break that place in half.
chop it, like you've been saying about Ohio and Cleveland, that there's like, I remember I've heard you say exactly that there's this intimation here of a cleaving, a
The
chopping. Now, this was just brought up in our Discord server. This is from Game of Thrones. It's on the screen. There's a character. His name is Aegon. He got his face burned, no ear. And if you look here, this was posted on my server. Yeah, character, blonde hair. I don't know if he relates to Trump necessarily, but the theme here is that on 8/4 season is a season finale, but apparently this character's got his ear burned off.
Wow. Man, see, I wish I had all these cable. I don't have cable, so that's why I don't get to watch any of this stuff. I
Yeah,
don't have Netflix or anything.
yeah, I have to pay Netflix. It's a necessary evil, but it's the only way to get this research. But we says tomahawk chop. Where's that from?
Well, the Cleveland Indians.
That's
That's what I'm
Cleveland
saying.
Indians.
And that's a 216 area code where Trump's, August 4th is a 216, 217 day of the year, and Cleveland is a 216 area code.
Okay. And hey, were you the one, or did someone else point this out that on Saving Private Ryan, there's a sniper who gets shot in the eye, and the actor's birthday is Trump's birthday, 6/14.
Oh, I never knew that. No, that's the first. That's the first I'm hearing it from you.
Yeah, there's a sniper who gets shot in the eye, and I think here it is. His name is Leo Stransky, and so you see the image of him. He gets blasted right through his eye, and so I looked up Leo Stransky, and yeah, weirdly enough, the actor's birthday is 6/14, June 14th, 1968.
Well, that makes sense. That stupid Tom Hanks was in that, right?
Yep, Tom
Yeah,
Hanks.
because he's all connected to Elvis, every single thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And he was working on Elvis when the Corona kicked off, and he
Yeah.
plays Tom. Is it Thomas Parker?
Tom Parker, yeah.
Another Tom, and then Park. Yeah, okay. This is good. This is interesting. So yeah,
And don't forget that Tom Parker, the singer, during this time, died of a brain aneurysm or whatever, brain cancer, and he was born. Tom Parker was born on August 4th. That singer, I'm saying, not the manager, Elvis manager,
right.
the singer, Tom Parker. He died at 33, if I'm not mistaken.
Fascinating. All right. Well, this
And
has
he was
been
born on August 4th.
a lot of great additional information, and we're going to be covering this because
All right.
I'm looking at 8/4 very closely, and I'll probably be
All right,
live the
I'll call
entire day.
back.
All right. Cool.
All right, I'll call
Appreciate
you
it.
back.
All right.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Let me go ahead and put a link to Jurassic Liars and his YouTube channel. There's so much to digest. Last time he called in was a data dump. Looking at the international hotel and the connection to the place where the Aloha from Hawaii was beamed, a UFO plus the three pillars, which would give you the Space Needle. And this is a very significant symbol compared to the obelisk, the UFO representing the capstone, the elite, the ascended, the elevated, and how even in the Elvis movie, it opens up at the International Hotel, but it has the Star Trek Starship Enterprise superimposed over the sign. So it actually creates what looks to be a completed Space Needle. And the Space Needle is a highly significant monument. In predictive programming, it's been destroyed as much as the Twin Towers were destroyed. So it's on the crosshairs and has been for some time. It's also Dr. Evil's home base, and I think in the Elvis cartoon, their base is there. It's a fascinating structure. It's encoded, and that's one thing too about the last call we talked about Freemasonry, but what characterizes it is they use the language as analogy, the tools of the architect, the stoneworker, the Freemason, and these are all they use metaphors, but they're able to encode meaning into the architecture. It's just like sacred geometry, for example. So just like we look at symbolism in movies, in literature, etc., it's there in the architecture as well. And this would include something like the Space Needle. A lot of it has to do with the physical aspects of it, but also the time. Like the Pentagon's construction begins 9/11, 1941, 60 years before. The Pentagon, 77 feet high, hit by Flight 77 after a 77-minute flight. So I mean, 9/11, Twin Towers, 33-year from construction to destruction, but the new one opened up 13 years later, highly significant, on 11/3, which we discussed the significance of these, but all of these big monuments have significant importance to this metascript. In fact, at ground zero, you have the Hilton Hotel, which is designed to look like Stanley Kubrick's monolith. So that the Hilton overlooking ground zero, which happens to be foreshadowed in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. If you look at The Shining, there's foreshadowing for the Twin Towers falling after the twins are dead on the floor next to the axe and the overturned chair. And if you compare, you'll see that there's a connection here. But really quick, look at the Hilton logo. Let's look at that first, because you can't unsee this. The Hilton logo is obviously the Twin Towers, and you can see where the two planes hit. Now let's look at the Millennium Hilton at ground zero. No, in fact, it was Space Odyssey 2001 that has the image of a monolith with all this construction around it, and it looks like ground zero with the monolith or the Millennium Hilton overlooking it. There's a great article by chartword.com, where he breaks down the significance of Stanley Kubrick's movies in the foreshadowing of 9/11. I have a few ideas for some IPS shorts. I want to do some short videos to make some of these connections obvious to people who aren't versed in this, and to do them in a series of shorts because there's just hours and hours to go through. And long form is fine, but the world has been TikTokified, and if you want to be heard, you have to somewhat conform to be heard. All right, let's catch up on comments. Ryla05 says Twin Towers were destroyed a lot. The only thing that comes close would be the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, let's bring the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm working on a mind map for this because we had the incident earlier this year where the shipping container hits the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Francis Scott Key, national anthem. Francis Scott Key had a monument adjacent to the Golden Gate Bridge, which was vandalized by BLM. And with BLM, you have the association with the national anthem, the protest of the national anthem, the symbolism of the kneeling, Colin Kaepernick, kneeling, Derek Chauvin, BLM, and the kneeling. So there's a bit of a story here with BLM going after this monument, vandalizing the Francis Scott Key monument at the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, this monument was later replaced by one representing the white lion, which brought over the first transatlantic enslaved persons in 1619. So the 1619 project is all about this idea that America didn't start in 1776. The story begins in 1619. But the significance here, again, BLM 1619 project is one side of a dialectic, with MAGAism and 1776 on the other side. And they've been playing on this dialectic. Leave the World Behind telegraphed a lot of this. But the connection here, of course, is that the Francis Scott Key brings in the Golden Gate Bridge into this particular narrative. And we've been looking at bridges. In fact, and I didn't get to this last night, so I'll get to it now. V for Vendetta had a scene which was there's a couple of things here. I'll bring up the Illuminati playing card pointing out the Eiffel Tower. Here it is. So V for Vendetta 2005, Olympics 2024. We're looking at something of a repeated theme here. It looks like an exploding bridge. And then you have the Illuminati playing card. France has always loved liberal causes. and it has what looks to be some kind of an explosion or something on the Eiffel Tower. Psyopsicle says there's lots of Eiffel Tower falling talk today on Twitter. Could be a plot to get more eyes on watching the Olympics because they're so boring anymore. As a kid, I was so into the 1984 Olympics. So asleep in the bliss. Well, they certainly know how to get the truthers occupied. Truthers watch the Olympics. Truthers watch Super Bowls, not because of the sports, the athletics, but because these are opportunities for the programmers to reach everybody at once. And anytime there's an opportunity to synchronize the multitudes, it's worth paying attention. Okay, here's a bridge connection too. I mentioned this the other day, and this is posted by Synchromorpheus. And USA Today reports the iconic Brooklyn Bridge was hit by a crane, which damaged it. Significance here: Brooklyn Bridge is the bridge that you see destroyed and leave the world behind at the 1 hour 28-minute mark on a movie that came out on, it was on 12/8. So you have this reference, that same number. The bridge was hit at 1:28. So there's something here. We're looking at themes, repetition. Okay, let me get to this though. I want to read my response to Fight the Flat Earth. Lean Dion says Hoover Dam also had the transformer explode. That's right. That's right. We were looking at the Hoover Dam because Westworld Season 4 opens up on the Hoover Dam. And after we were talking about this, there was an explosion at the Hoover Dam, and the Transformers has something of a supercomputer that houses these Transformers, the sentience inside of these black cubes. But yes, there's also some suggestions of the Hoover Dam breaking. I think on the $50 bill, is it? The predictive programming on the money is interesting in itself. The $20 bill, the 50, the $100 bill seems to have the Space Needle with an EMP blast above it. Okay, I think there's something else here I might have missed. I'm trying to catch up on your comments. Wee says the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco has a bunch of Egyptian symbolism. All right, Rosso Haig 888 says the movie 2 Minute Warning, 1976. 91,000 people, 33 exits, one sniper. An unknown sniper positions himself at the LA Memorial Coliseum before a professional football championship dubbed Championship X. Have any of you seen the Grisby Brothers? I'm not sure what the hell that is, but I saw this clip from some kind of Grimsey or Gribsy Brothers. Brothers Grimsey, is that the one? Where Donald Trump is in a stadium and you see a bullet's eye view as it shoots him in the head. I mean, they've been killing Trump for a long time. They've been killing the Space Needle. They've been killing the Twin Towers. Okay, here we go. Do you want to debate? It says Fight the Flat Earth. Do you want to debate? And here's my answer. My argument is not that the Earth is flat, but that our worldview itself is false. That collectively, humanity is being filtered through a new monotheism, which we call mass media. My argument is that this has replaced religion and standardized a worldview for all mankind, despite our different regional and national differences. Moreover, I argue that outer space is a unifying construct to replace the heavens promised by the archaic religions. I argue that the transformative historical events of our time are staged for the purposes of manipulating history, which is what fake news does on a daily basis. The power elite, the programmers behind the program, have co-opted news and entertainment and use these as a direct link between government and the individual. Finally, my entire premise rests upon the provable fact that there's only one government, one monolithic government media apparatus. The shape of the world is less relevant than how our worldview is formed. Debunking flat Earth wouldn't change the fact that the images of the world we have been shown are fakeable and provided by the lying world government. You, and I'm referring to Fight the Flat Earth, you are what auto hoaxers would term a media true believer. I think a debate between you and I would necessarily go outside of your comfort zone and that of your audience. I'm not a flat earth idiot punching bag like Witsit gets it. So let me know what you think. No response yet. But last time we talked, he cried. He wants to talk about the curvature formula, Aristosthenes, and I'm like, Challenger explosion was faked, and he just lost it. So I don't know if we're going to get a repeat. Shannon Jones says, look up the new metal group Category 7's album cover. I think it's the Golden Gate Bridge Destroyed. Wasn't Gilbert Godfrey? Yeah, that's what it... Wasn't Gilbert Godfrey the one who was talking about this at one point a few years ago? I'll see if I can find it. Comedian Gilbert Godfrey was warning people to stay away from the Golden Gate Bridge. I didn't get it. I don't know what the joke was, but needless alarmism? I don't know. Gilbert Gottfried's cryptic warning, stay off the Golden Gate Bridge. And this was on 8/11/2019. So 8/11 is the final day of the dog days of summer, the days during which the Sirius, the dog star, that is the star of initiation, all the cults worship this star. It's behind the sun. So here is Gilbert Godfrey, and I believe he's warning us about...
A month prior on July 11th.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Gottfried. This is for San Francisco, being sent by Harp. Stay off the Golden Gate Bridge on August 11th, or I'll shake you down. Here I come. Shout out to...
Okay. Gilbert Godfrey, funny guy. He died in April 2022, but this was on Cameo. Okay, Zach Hubbard got fooled. Apparently, this wasn't posted to the web as a warning. This was on Cameo. Cameo is where you can pay somebody to say anything at all, and they will say it for money. So does this constitute a warning? I mean, the date's ominous, 8/11, 88. Gilbert Godfrey, GG77, Golden Gate. I can see where Zach Hubbard found a lot to go off of here. But the explanation here is that this was a cameo, which doesn't mean it wasn't planted there. Maybe this was his assignment. Hey, we need you to throw some predictive programming out there for the masses who are enmeshed in the world stage. This is how it's going to go.
And why it's a concerning date. It's the 9th of Av, the Jewish day.
Yeah. Ryler05 says, Zach Hubb's a ding-dong. Well, Zach Hubb has decoded the language of God, and he uses it to predict sports to win money. Like, I don't know. If I had predictive capabilities, I wouldn't be looking at sports. But I don't think gematria is there to predict the future. I think you can use it to effectively employ the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and you can create the impression of prescience and predictability. But no, it's a cipher. It's a tool for encoding information. It's used within the magical systems, which are all built on loading meaning, creating coincidence or synchronistic meanings. That's ultimately what we're looking at here. Look at this. Top stories. This is that California fire sparked by a 42-year-old man. So I've been saying for some time we need to quarantine the 33-year-olds because they seem to be the preeminent S starters on the world stage, from Martin Luther to Jesus, to Tim McVeigh to the QAnon shaman, all 33s. But 42-year-olds are also very well represented in the chaos. This is probably code. Remember, I mentioned the 42-mile stretch between Butler, Pennsylvania and Palestine, Ohio. 42 is code. And I have a symbolic breakdown of it, which I'm going to do some IPS shorts so I can make these things clearer. Also, we talk about metascriptors. Ellen Moore is a big one. He did V for Vendetta. I discovered Jack Parsons. I didn't know who he was until I read an Alan Moore comic called Prometheus, in which he has Jack Parsons, who is burning eternally in endless ecstasy because of his service of in the I guess the summoning of the Whore of Babylon. This is just Alan Moore's comic. Alan Moore was into Aleister Crowley by the time he was like 12. But anyway, Jack Parsons on fire here as a Burning Man. Very significant image here and motif overall. I mean, the Burning Man Maxwell as Rello in 419. That was a direct relation. That had direct relationship to Trump, to Dave Koresh, to Timothy McVeigh, to Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker. These are multi-layered stories. I wish we had time to go through all of that one, but I want to get through the rest of my notes. Okay, here's a link in the chat. Fake 921 Jim Fetzer. If you haven't listened to the Jim Fetzer on Fakeologist, I highly recommend it. And again, he said that he's open to the possibility of the ISS being fake. Like, he's not a gatekeeper. There's a difference between a gatekeeper and someone who's been somewhat insulated and hasn't explored the fringes. And, we are the cutting fringe and have been for some time. Okay, moving on. I think we're just about there. Now, this might be something. The News is Fake 4 said it's crazy how many large shill channels have semi-viral videos shilling for the Trump hoax. Gun channels, military channels. The algorithm is pushing them. Large events always expose shills. It's reminiscent of the fake V in that way. Now, this is an important point. Anybody promoting second shooter or false flag reveals themselves to be one of two things: insulated and they can't see outside of their own box, or controlled opposition gatekeepers. In both instances, you can't follow them. Maybe they have some good research, but you can't trust their judgment. Messianic Charlatan says Gilbert Gottfried's double G like Golden Gate. Yeah, there must be something to it. 8/11 is the date, so that's not too long. We don't have to wait very long. This might be the oldest example of predictive programming. Ingersoll Lockwood's book, The Last President, is about a man named Trump. We talked about this the other day. It begins on a Tuesday, November the 3rd, significant date, 11/3/2020, a disputed election. But this is a book from 124 years ago. Again, it's called The Last President. It's got time travel, it's got Barron Trump, it's got Pence, but listen to this.
This time, you won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians.
You won't have to vote anymore. It'll be fixed, is what he's saying. He'll be the last president. And there's a lot of libs taking this seriously. Did Trump just say he's going to be a dictator for life? Is he going to be the last president? Well, the book is called The Last President. And I'm going through the comments, and a lot of the people in there like the idea. Something else? Apparently, if you search for assassination attempt on, you get Reagan, Hitler, George Wallace, Bob Marley, Gerald Ford, Teddy Roosevelt. But nowhere do you see Trump. Like, nobody is Googling Trump. Was the J.D. Vance couch thing that much of a distraction? No, they're probably burying it. Got a comment from Mordant Meister 45. He says, what is IPS's position on chemtrails? I heard him say these are condensation trails, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't deny lines in the sky. He also rebukes people for saying they don't remember these pre-mid-90s. If you're old enough, you'll know they were not spraying like they do today. So a lot of veteran truthers will say, you whippersnappers don't know, but we used to have blue skies and a yellow sun. That's not true. Condensation trails didn't just start in the 90s. The conspiracy theory was popularized in the 90s thanks to, I guess, X-Files and Art Bell. But There are loads of studies and observational data about condensation trails and their formation conducted by the Air Force, in addition to meteorologists. And the Air Force had a very specific interest in knowing what conditions are conducive to the creation of contrails so they can avoid those conditions and altitudes lest they give away their positions. So if you look at the Appleman chart in 1958, that represented years of observation. So I don't know how old Mordant Meister 45 is, but I don't think he's older than chemtrails. He also goes on to say about me, he says, all people who witnessed Bigfoot actually saw a bear. Yeah, I do say that. When you see something in the woods walking on its hind legs and it's tall and furry, it's a bear. Bears walk on their hind legs. They can dance. They can ride bikes. I mean, you've been to a circus. Bears walk. And if you see a walking bear, it's going to look like Bigfoot. There's no reason to insert Bigfoot into the realm of possibility. This is just an error. It's a non sequitur fallacy. If you hear something in the woods, you have to rule out what is known before you can include cryptids. You see a strange looking stray dog, it's got to be a dog, and you have to rule out dog before you can rule in chupacabra. But you'll notice that believers in Bigfoots and chupacabras prefer to opt for the most extreme or entertaining possibility first. He goes on to say, what about UFOs? He says, these are fake as well. Has he debated experts in those areas? Well, there are no expert chupacabra observers. There are no expert Bigfoot observers. If you're an expert, you would have evidence. You have rumor mongers. You have people who are grifting off of a rumor, a contemporary myth. There are no experts. The experts who look at UFO data or evidence are the ones who debunk the stuff. People like Mick West. He goes on to say, these are absurd stances. Perhaps it's a unique angle to get attention. Maybe he should change the name to Infinite Plane So Psyopy. Yeah, I don't believe in UFOs. I don't believe in unicorns or Bigfoot. That doesn't make me less truthy. It means that I'm holding up a higher standard for what I accept as evidence. The mainstream media has a very low standard of evidence. They want low information believers. They don't want you to ask questions. They want you to just accept it. And I'm saying that we need to be highly informed about what we can know, or highly informed about that which we do not believe in. Like, I like to know as much as I can about the things that people believe in, even if I don't believe in them. There's a huge difference, a gulf, between low info believer and informed disbeliever. And we are the latter. Ryler05 says JLB thinks toucans are fake. There's a difference between fake and fakeable. You can fake a toucan. You can glue a beak on a parrot, I guess. But if you can fake it, sure, just like you can fake anything for a movie. But can you fake it at scale? No. There are too many toucans in the world. There are too many videos of time lapses of these things being born. There are remains that have been analyzed. You can find skeletal remains, dissections. You just talk to a biologist. Before you start diagnosing clouds as toxic, talk to a meteorologist. Before you say this animal can't exist, I don't believe in koala bears, talk to a zookeeper. You can fake a gorilla. You can put somebody in a gorilla costume. But can you fake gorillas at scale all around the world? No. Same goes for pandas. And the people who don't believe in pandas are low info disbelievers. They don't have enough information to say pandas don't exist. They haven't consulted with any zookeepers. So their disbelief does not weigh that much. In fact, it's worthless. And you could say the same for a whole category of conspiracy theories where it's very low information, disbelief just as bad as low information belief. And what we're here is IPS, the Infinite Plane Society, is we are fomenting a culture of disbelief, specifically. Now, this is probably fake news. This was posted by Tiffany Holland. She said, a lady in TikTok got a job at a zoo. They had a gorilla that was the main attraction that people paid to see, and she came to work and the gorilla had died. So the manager asked her if she wanted to make some extra money by putting on a gorilla suit till they could find other gorillas. She said sure, earning an extra 200 a day, so that was cool. But the attraction was fading out, and the manager said, "Can you do something to bring people back? Can you climb the tree and hang off a branch upside down and swing back and forth?" The people were loving it and cheering, but she was swinging a little too fast, and the branch hung over the lion's den. And she started screaming for help. She couldn't stop herself. She said, "I got so scared because I could feel the lion creeping up from behind me." She said the lion got close to her and said, "STFU before you get us all fired." Okay, probably unserious. Anyway, gorillas are fakeable, but not at scale. Same goes for every other animal. This is AutoHoax or GTFO. Thanks for joining. I'll send out archives later this evening.